Well, it looks like it's working pretty nice for you.
It
Much
is.
pain or doing good?
Well, there's the soreness isn't in the hip. That's gone. That was left on the operating floor. But the quad, because of all of the pulling of part of muscles to get
Yeah.
at the joint, is it continues to be stiff and therefore some discomfort. But they say that I go to therapy regularly. I work out every day in the house. I have exercise to do, and from all reports,
Well,
apparently
the
I'm
way you
doing
got up
okay.
and down, it looks like it's doing quite well.
And I generally walk without a walker or a cane. And I dropped those recently, but I have the walker because of being outside.
Yeah, with the ice, you
Yeah.
know, you don't want to take a chance and make a
I don't
mistake.
wanna
No, I
fall,
don't
no.
blame you. Oh.
Doesn't look exciting.
Hi, Mick.
Hello, Mr. Mickey.
Hi, Jason. Nice to see you.
Jason.
A little chilly out there again, huh? We'll
Sure
get down
is.
to 11 tonight, huh? Unbelievable.
So, certainly went well.
Todd from Allis.
Oh, I
John
thought.
told you?
Yeah.
That was her
Yeah.
night.
Because I said, I think that Mickey will give you a great report on shoulders. You should go see him. He didn't do my knees. He didn't do my shoulders. Instead of doing my hips. And I've known him for a long time.
Who was the doctor?
Shoulders, Dr. Jeff Shoulders.
Is that the doctor used to be up?
Right on the corner.
Yeah,
across
in the
from
old
our
Dutch and Dairy building?
That's right.
Yeah,
His father was there.
yeah,
And then he followed in his father's footsteps.
yeah. Because quite a few years ago, I just had a piece of cartilage that broke up, and he went in and took care of that for me. Oh, that was a long time ago.
Was that his father?
No, no, that was him. He had just kind of taken over from his
Do you
dad.
happen to know
He's
what
one of the most
date it
prolific
is that you set for the
surgeons at West Allis, if not.
It might be really late.
He did the revisions on
Between
Mickey.
Christmas and New Year's.
Mickey just referred his own relative.
No,
Well, his dad was quite well
Wayne's
known
on
too.
there. He's having a second hip surgery, so we're trying to get it.
Okay, so we still have to set that.
Yeah, but we have to have it before the end of the year because we didn't do one with a joint update on all the tests. There's something with a report
call, please.
Wayne Clark,
Yes.
Karen Gale, Don
Excused.
Niemer,
Here.
Alderman Chaplesky, Alderman Haas, Jerry Botter,
Here.
Jason Metz.
Here. We have a quorum.
Move approval of the minutes.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes stand approved. First item on the agenda tonight is the public hearing. I, Jerry Motter, Chairman of the Community Development Authority. The notice of the hearing will now be read, but we got that hearing? No.
Clock is 2 minutes fast. It's
Notice
6
is hereby
o'clock.
given that the city of West Dallas will hold an organizational review board meeting. A notice is hereby given that the Community Development Authority, City of West Dallas will hold a public hearing on November 12th, 2019 at 6 p.m. at City Hall, located at 7525 West Greenfield Avenue, for the purposes of providing the community a reasonable opportunity to comment on the proposed creation of the district and its project plan boundaries.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stevo. The Executive Director of the Community Development Authority has filed with the authority the notice of the hearing. Affidavits of publication will be filed as soon as received from the official newspaper as required by Section 66.1333 Wisconsin statutes. These documents will be part of the proceedings in this matter. The purpose is probably to hear the opportunity of all interested parties to express their views and propose consideration on the creation of tax increment district number 18, Chris Hansen, South 92nd and Lapham, City of West Dallas, and approve the proposed boundaries of the project plan therefore. B, follow the closing of this hearing, the authority will consider a vote on the resolution to designate the proposed boundaries and approving the project's plan for tax increment district number 13, Chris Hansen, South 92nd and Lapham, City of West Dallas, Wisconsin. If the resolution will be submitted to the Common Council by the City of West Dallas for approval, it's provided by Section 66.1333 Wisconsin statutes. Mr. Stiebel, you have the floor.
Patrick, would you do the public hearing, please?
Yes. Members of the authority, tonight we are doing the statutory requirement to hold a public hearing for the adoption or consideration of a tax increment district number 18 to facilitate the Chris Hansen expansion, 92nd and Lapham. Just to remind everybody, Chris Hansen has around 290 employees here in West Dallas. They're a bioscience business where 1 billion people a day consume a product that's influenced by Chris Hansen globally. They have a number of skilled and high level positions that are important to cheese business, dairy business in Wisconsin. And internationally, Chris Hansen is a Danish business. The U.S. headquarters are here in West Dallas, but they're recognized as the world's most sustainable business in terms of for the environment. They are looking to do a 9 to 18, actually around $25 million investment for their first phase. They would start construction here in 2020 at a 20,000 square foot addition of manufacturing space that would project out west of their current location. There would be around 25 new positions. Our philosophy through this TIF was also to help Denmark consider future investments at the facility. And when we created the TIF, as you're going to see here shortly, the idea was to leave the door open for future expansion of the site. Chris Hansen did buy a number of, I think around 9 properties around the site, including the Knights of Columbus, which is located here to the western portion of their headquarters on 92nd and Lapham, roughly. The first expansion would be in this general area. These 9 properties have already been raised and cleared, and this pretty much this orange line on the outside represents the entire boundary of the development area that has all the properties that are going to be included within the TIF. They are currently in the process of doing a CSM that would put this all within their corporate campus. This is the phase 1. This on the left is the current facility, and on the right is the expansion. This is the proposed boundary of the TIF area. The TIF plan outlines project costs of the following: 1.4 million of increment from a $25 million development, which would have an estimated $5 million taxable value. And this is supposed to be completed by December 31st of 2022. The 1.4 million of increment is gained over a 12-year period from the start of construction. The 11.9 million here indicated as a placeholder. It's 11.9 million of increment if there's a future expansion of the Chris Hansen facility. If they do a number of other developments at the site, there's a chance that there could be close to $200 million in development. Now, there's no guarantee of any of that. It's just if everything substantially comes together, this is what it could be realized within this TIF. So that's why before I alluded to the door being open for Denmark to continue to do investment here at the Chris Hansen site. We also have $200,000 for a half-mile improvements around the site. This is within the statute to do economic or housing or demolition projects within a half-mile of the TIF, and $155,000 in there for development of the TIF district and also administration.
That 155,000 would be managed by you.
The city ourselves, correct.
Thank you.
The 7.4 million estimated base value for the TIF is all the properties that are within the yellow boundary that we outlined it before. So there is a significant base at the level of construction there in the land value. As we alluded to before, 40 million of tax increment could be gained by roughly 200 million in development if everything could come into place. So the first phase right now is 25 million with a 5 million of incremental value. And if there's additional development, this is a TIF that is a pay-go. So the Chris Hansen will have to do these investments to achieve any of the benefit from the TIF. That we do have a stipulation within the development agreement that this development in phase 2 would have to start before 2025. And then they would get 12 years of increment from the start of those particular phases. If as I outlined before, the bottom line, which is really easy for you all to see, 1.4 million is the tax increment for the first phase, and the potential 11.9 million of increment for the second phase, for a total expenditure of around 13.2. Then we add in the 200,000 for the half mile and the admin for a total TIF expenditure of around 13.6, with a TIF termination date of around 2037, based on the terms of the development agreement. So it would take to 2037 for this TIF to be complete. We pay off all our expenditure obligations within this TIF. As I outlined before, the first phase, 18 million, and then there's a phase 2 unknown, but it has the potential to maybe add 100 full-time jobs. The first phase is 25. The demolition for the Knights of Columbus is around December 31st, and then they would start construction in spring. They are, I think, already talking with planning to have plans submitted here either in December or January. And then phase 2, dependent on business growth, no later than December 31st of 2025, could they realize the 12 years of increment for each phase. So that's a stipulation to attract that investment to the site. The schedule currently is we had the introduction of the TIF plan on October 8th. We had the first joint review board meeting on November 7th. Tonight we're fulfilling the statutory obligation of the public hearing for the TIF boundary and TIF plan. On December 3rd, the Common Council would consider the TIF plan and the boundaries, and then we would have the last step, which is the joint review board meeting here in late December. I gladly answer any questions that you may have regarding the TIF.
Any questions of the board? If not, we'll proceed. Any interested parties and tenants may now express their views and propose consideration for tax increment district number 13, Chris Hansen, South 92nd, Lapham Street, City of West Allis, and approval of the proposed boundaries and project. Please raise your hand to be recognized. Upon being recognized, state your name, your address, and your interest in the proposal. Then you may proceed with your statement. If you are on behalf of an interested party, please state the name of the party you represent. Does anyone wish to be recognized at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I do want to point out that Todd Taves is here from Ellers.
Yes.
Who helped develop the projections for the TIF and also worked with us on the creation of the TIF plan. So if there's any questions for Ellers, we do have them here too, relative to the feasibility of the TIF.
Right. Seeing no questions at this time, is there any other questions regarding this matter? If not, there be no parties wish to present, I declare this hearing closed, and I will now proceed with our next order of business. Item number 2, the
Yes,
proposed.
three.
Okay.
Item three, we did.
3?
Yeah.
We'll skip 2, okay, 3. Item 3, resolution considered designation, proposed boundaries, and adopting a project plan for tax district number 18, City of West Allis, Wisconsin. Mr. Stevel.
Yeah, Patrick,
This is just for the approval of the TIF plan. You're on item 3.
Yeah,
we just held the public hearing.
Right, so this step is just this slide here outlining that this is the boundary of the TIF, and then it's for the adoption of the TIF plan that was just outlined in the public hearing.
Move approval.
Second.
been moved approval in second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item 4, resolution to consider approval of sole source contract with Eller and Associates Incorporated for the preparation of tax increment district number 18, the district. Mr. Stevel.
We, in conjunction with the finance department, have continued to hire Ellers to do all our financial projections and the preparation of the plan, and this is their payment for doing so.
I move approval. Second.
Been moved for approval in second. Any further discussion? Mr. Clark.
Yes, well, do we pay by the hour or by the project? How do we pay
It's a
Allis?
flat fee,
Pardon me?
flat fee,
What is that?
$15,000.
I'm sorry. For the entire work on number 18?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes.
Oh, there it is, right on the board there.
We don't have to go into closed session for nothing there, okay. Item number 5, discussion relative to the property located at 10620 West Greenfield Avenue, former Burger King. Mr. Stevel.
Mr. Chairman, we discussed this at our last meeting about putting in an offer on a land contract. The owners of the property have come back with a counter offer. We had in there to make it, that the cities would have the sole right to withdraw from the contract at any time. And that's why we offered to pay the $40,000 brokerage fee, so that if we should withdraw at any time, they wouldn't lose any money. Well, they're insisting that they want to have that clause withdrawn, so that we can't withdraw at our discretion at any time. And if that is the case, then I would recommend that we not enter into the agreement with them, because we said we were not going to upfront buy this property, and that would effectively mean that. And so we can still work with the owner to try to help them develop the property, but we should, the staff is recommending that we withdraw from the, on advice of our council, that we withdraw from the project.
Great, thank you, Mr. Stevel. Is there any questions of Mr. Stevel? Mr. Clark.
By withdrawing, we lose our leverage, don't we?
To a certain extent, yes,
And
which is why we were trying to buy the property.
this has been sitting there for a long time, which we've all talked about. What can we do to expedite something happening?
We will continue to work with the brokerage community to try to find prospective buyers to do that.
Has there been any other interest?
Little,
Little?
some, a little, but some. And we're just going to try and, even our discussion of potentially buying it has generated some more interest. So hopefully we'll see what happens. And maybe the owner will decide that they're still willing to go with us and withdraw their requirement that we delete that clause, but
As is the president, and just follow through with what you're doing then. Any other questions, Mr. Stevel? If not, we'll go to item number 6. Discussion relative to the utility relocation for South 116th Street in West Rogers, TIF number 10. Mr. Stevel. You want to do 7 with it? Oh, no, that's a
No,
different one.
that's a
No,
different one.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, on that issue, when we did the Weingart project, 160th and Rogers, all the utilities were to be buried underground, and they put the poles on both sides of the street and brought the power while it was over. It's gonna cost about $150,000 to remove them. And we told them, hey, that's what our agreement says, that's what we had it in there for a reason. So take those poles down. Well, now it's been a while, we're still pushing them. And they came back and said, what if we were to make a contribution to the community for some other fund, or the activity they want to do in lieu of that? And I said, well, whatever you ask, I'll take before the authority, and let them decide if they're even interested in exploring that option.
Let me buy us off, man.
Yeah.
I'd say the polls come down.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Alderman
I
Chapletsky.
say it was in the agreement. If we had it in agreement that we were gonna do that, would they settle for poles instead of under the ground? No.
You are absolutely correct.
So the consensus is that we
Yeah,
should
and-
follow through with our original agreement. Alderman Haas.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, taking a step forward, if we don't take their offer, their suggestion, what's their next step? What I'm getting at is, are they gonna sue us? Do you think that they have any chance if they sue us over $150,000?
I mean, anybody can sue us, but I
Yeah.
doubt that they'll sue us. I mean, it's pretty clear of their legal obligation, and obviously they're trying to buy their way out with some other mechanism, but we told them, like the Alderman said, we had it in there for a reason. We want our projects to look good. And we're creating a template for the rest of the community to look good.
And the wires do go underground to the building, except it's on the wires are overhead up to their property line.
On the north and
And then
south
they
side, they go
go
up and down, yes.
underground. Yeah. So, right. Okay.
So the consensus is, go ahead, Mr. Clark.
I'm just gonna ask, what are we going to do to get these polls down?
I think we'll have, when we go back to them, this is the last ditch effort, I'm hoping, and I will have a program for you as to how they're gonna act at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, consensus is just to follow through with our original agreement.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Stevel. Item 7, discussion relative to project update for the property located at 6771 West National Avenue. Mr. Stevel.
Sean?
Thank you. This is just a brief update on the 6771 at West National Ave building. As you know, Bomb Revision Group has a letter of intent, an approved letter of intent with the CDA to, the idea being they would do a historic rehabilitation to this building on 68th and National. And they would do something similar to what they've done at the Garver Feed Mill in Madison, which we'll be visiting Thursday at 9 a.m. We'll be leaving to go check out what they've done there. So they have a similar concept of what they want to do here. They've submitted the Part 1 to the to get the historic tax credit approvals, and as part of that, the state approved it, but the National Park Service kicked it back and said they want to see the siding removed on the 68th Street side and on the National Ave sides. We were hoping to keep those up as long as we could, just to protect the building as long as we could. But they said, no, we need to see those removed before we will sign off on this historic approval. So we're going through that process. The 68th Street side is actually now completely removed, and they're moving on to National Ave, and that should be done if it's within the next day or two.
Snowing or something.
And then following that, our historic consultant will come out, take pictures, send that back to the National Park Service, and they will hopefully sign off. That then starts the Part 2 process, which are the detailed building construction plans, which have to also go to the National Park Service for approval. It's a lengthy process, but one that has a lot of value to it. Historic tax credits could be up to $4 million in value to the project. So it's an exciting project. It's just going to take some time. After the Part 2 is done, it would lead to the general time would be closing, along with likely some new market tax credit aspects, and the historic tax credits. and then they would be ready for construction right after that, because the construction drawings would all be done at that point. So once that's done, and likely in the February, construction could start after that.
Thank you, Sean. Any questions? Jason?
Is there, obviously they have to take it down, there are plans to kind of be able to put it back up to protect it after the photos are taken, or is it, once it's down, it stays down?
Once it's down, we're thinking it stays down. We are having them, patch very temporarily and cheaply the windows that are broken, just to just to sort of protect the inside of the building as much as we can. Patch the holes essentially.
They will put all new winterite or glass in there. And that's part of the whole panache of this project, is that all that glass in that building. So they'll have high energy windows put back in. And
Right now, we're just hoping to just temporarily protect it.
Okay.
It's we're trying to do it, to put panels back on isn't necessarily very, isn't cost effective, but we get the concept.
Mr. Clark?
Have we had prior experience working with the Park Service?
yes, we have, but not exactly like this, but we've worked with the State Historic Preservation folks before. This developer has had a lot of experience with them. We've seen a lot of other developments have a lot of experience with them. We understand the process, and it's,
Just laborious.
yes, they are very meticulous, and the next part is long because they have to prepare plans and specifications, architectural drawings, bid it out. The nice thing is, once they finally give final approval, they can sign contracts and start construction, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Then we'll go to item number 8, resolution. Consider authorizing the executive director to enter into a contract amendment with Rambo Environment for providing grant writing service relative to United States Environmental Protection Agency brownfield grant in the amount not to exceed $4,500. Mr. Stiebel.
Second?
Been moved for approval. Any further discussion?
How much is that? Is it general grant services or a particular grant?
This is just to write the application.
A specific application?
Yeah,
How
for,
much is the grant?
we hope to get about $500,000.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's 2 pots, hazardous and petroleum, and we've gotten, over the years, we've probably got 600,000.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item number 9, resolution to consider approving a license and support renewal
Second?
for Happy Software.
We are happy
Then
with
move for approval and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item 10, resolution to consider establishing the 2020 payment standard for the Housing Choice Voucher Program. Mr. Stiebel.
Patrick?
What this is HUD each year establishes the rents for the Section 8 program. They do a survey and they come back with a certain fair market rent that's in the market. So in 2019 on the left, you can see what the rents were and the fair market rents in 2020 as proposed by HUD. And per the program rules, we can go to 110% of that figure. And you can see it's relatively modest increases on the 110% for the proposed payment standard for the Section 8 program. So for example, a single bedroom unit would have a max rent of $837. That's $9 increase over 2019. And we're recommending to go to the 110% payment standard.
Utilities?
That's, utilities are separate.
Move approval.
Second?
Been moved for approval and second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item 11, resolution to consider approval 2020 Public House Authority Annual Plan. Mr. Stiebel.
Patrick?
What this is just a renewal of our annual, that we're willing to do the Section 8 vouchers, and we have to submit a plan to HUD that we're gonna do outreach, address, help affordable housing, help individuals who are low income, and we submit a plan that's just a couple pages saying, we're gonna do that. and that we hope that we can effectively manage the 550 vouchers. The one thing to note here is that we do have a resident and advisory board. We submit our plan to them and saying this is how we're gonna administer the program. Do you have any questions? And all of them voted unanimously in favor of the plan. So, this is the step to approve that plan before the authority.
Move approval.
Second.
Move for approval and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. 12. Consideration, item 12, consideration relative to the third quarter report for Beloit Road Senior Apartment LLC. Mr. Stiebel.
Peggy?
Just
I
quickly.
just took it by surprise is all. This is the quarterly report that we get. And Patrick, if you want to
Yeah,
expand on
just
it.
quickly, the balance sheet shows that our revenues were slightly higher than expenses. We are going through a change here where we're hiring Ogden to come in and do the management. I think today I just got the okay from the city attorney's office for the contract, so we're moving forward on that front. The one thing that we're gonna note is that our quarter four taxes will be increased because our assessment value went up on Bullet Road, so we'll have a slight increase on our taxes in the Q4. But those are the notes that I received from finance.
So just one correction, revenues are higher than expected, they're much higher than expenditures, so
Yeah.
there's like a 266,000 operating income at this point, so, as expected.
Okay.
Is it
All
good
right.
to have that kind of significant
Income?
overage?
Well, there's some reasons for it, and the reasons are part of why we're doing the new agreement with the management company is because we really haven't been maintaining it up to what we need to. So if you go back to the 2017 statements, you'd see a little bit different, and then with Cardinal backing out as far as the management goes and things like that, that caused the expenditures to go down. So we don't expect that's how all the year will go, but at least the first 3 quarters because of what's been going on.
So you're comfortable?
Yes.
Public Works just doesn't have the time and manpower to do what they used to be able to do, and that's why we're moving this off to privatize it so that they can spend their time on public work stuff.
Move approval.
Second.
1 second, please. Don.
Question for, what's the reason behind the interest expense increase?
I don't know specifically that line item, but I will tell you what happens, and this is likely the reason that I can follow up with you. We have some loans in place from when we did the transfer of ownership due to the LIHTC deal. And those loans, we're only paying interest on some of them, we're not paying off principal. So there's a couple of them that have not been made. So it's more of a paper issue than a monetary issue, but I can certainly follow up and let you know if it's any different than that.
The big issue with that is that as part of the low-income housing tax credit program, we had to put a budget together, and the bigger the number, the more the tax credits that could be sold, so the more cash that you could get back in. So what we did is we took like the value of the property that we own and then lent that money, sold it to the authority, and then lent them the money that now the authority's paying it. And so we didn't have enough, we knew we didn't have enough money to pay us back. We'll get all the money back at the end of the 15-year compliance period, then we'll own it. But so that's why that there's interest being charged in there. It's very nominal, but we're paying it ourselves effectively, but it just got us from a $5 million project to a $7 million project. That got us another $500,000 in funds to renovate the properties. But so we're short on the books that way as a loan, which it has to be for IRS purposes, and that it has to be repaid. So that's why that amount is that high.
Just another question. So the operating income is a little bit higher than anticipated, but yet we're gonna have a negative cash flow from operations? And maybe we can talk offline.
Okay, we'll just hold that and you can discuss that with Peggy later.
Balance sheet changes, but
Yeah.
yeah, we can sort
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Otherwise, everybody else is satisfied with what we have just discussed there? All right, thank you. We go to item number E,
gotta
consider.
vote. We have a motion and a second, we need to vote.
Oh, yeah, that was right, I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution passes, thanks. Item E, consideration relative to the report on redevelopment initiatives. Mr. Stevel.
On 68th and Mitchell, the former Milwaukee ductile site, behavioral health is going to be starting construction hopefully later this winter. We hope to close on the project by the mid-January. And they did come back and had some architectural changes, and they were fairly minor in their appearances, like these windows here were gone, as you can see here, just to help them reduce some of their costs. But we held pretty firm on the quality of what we wanted to have in that building, and it's what it could turn out to be very little noticeable change, but yet it's still going to be a very delightful and attractive facility for that neighborhood. We're just kind of showing you the differences here that they're changing. They're fairly slight. On the market, on the Mandel project here, they've got about 11 people currently living in there. They got 20 units leased, and they got about 86 prospects that they're working with, trying to get them in there, and they're going to be in here. We're going to have a tour of this facility Monday, the 18th
At 1:30.
at 1:30. Park in the street, and then just walk in to the rec center, and then they'll go in there for their gathering space, and then they'll do a tour of the apartments. And then for those that are interested, then they'll go over and tour Aurora. But these are some of the apartments that are currently in there. Also, hopefully in the very near future, we're going to be having an announcement as to what's going to be going on with the south of National Avenue, with this facility here, and building out a restaurant facility, and then some other additional areas, developments in there. But that will probably be at our next, I wouldn't be surprised if we would have it at our next meeting.
Brief, 70th Street corridor, that's the next thing on the on here, was just, we took a brief tour last week or the week before of the Cobalt development of some of the remodeling of the school district building, the 1205 building on the west side of 70th, where they've come a long way and done a lot of great work. And they showed us some of their what their future plans are for the building as well, which are exciting. And we also got a tour of the other side of the street, the east side of 70th Street, the 1126, which was a different story, and it was in rough shape and things like that. But it was interesting to see the two sides of the street, and literally seeing some of the tenants moving from the 1126 building over to the 1205. So it was pretty exciting.
The hallway had the effects of The Shining, with the long hallways and
Without the blood.
without the blood and without a tricycle sitting in there. So
They just have one tenant left. Basically, they have one tenant left in there, the daycare, which is going to be moving over to the Summit Place office building, a part of that. And then and once that tenant's out, they'll be able to complete the asbestos removal. And then you'll start seeing on the outs, you'll start seeing demolition actually begin after the asbestos removal is complete. Likely, maybe January-ish, or somewhere around that time. So.
They've got most of the asbestos abatement already done. They're just waiting for this last part, people to get out so they can finish that, and then shut down the utilities, and then do all that done. And as soon as they get that out, then they'll start demolition physically of the south end of the building first. Then as soon as they get far enough, then they'll start building the hotel. And then when they get the balance completed, hopefully the market will be prepared so they can start building the new development that I think we talked about at the last meeting, the 350,000 square feet of office. A good thing to remember is that existing building, the 1126 building, probably 5 or 6 or 7 years ago was assessed at about $11 million. And since Dick Carlson owned it probably 15 years ago, it was sold to another group of investors, and they just took money out of it, and they never put money back into it. And so they took $11 million building, and all the tenants eventually left, and it became a $3 million, $4 million building. And it was just a classic example of disinvestment ruining that building. And now it's going to have to be demolished. But that's the price you pay for not reinvesting. And granted, some developers can't afford to reinvest, and that's what happens to neighborhoods when owners can't afford to reinvest. They start deteriorating, and this is a classic example.
I just want to say, I'd be remiss not to mention that it was, when you get through these hallways and you walk through all these office buildings, you really feel the sense of Allis Chalmers and the footprint that it really left here in this city. And when you go through, then how many people passed through these hallways and worked. And I know we have a person that worked there at one time, and it's certainly impressive to know that the size of Allis Chalmers at its day, when its heyday, was certainly an impressive company.
Anything else?
Next item. Patrick, Highway 100, or Sean, you did that one.
Yeah, just speaking of hotels, the Holiday Inn Express is under construction on 102nd and Lincoln. This is just a picture taken today of it.
Elevator shaft's
The
up.
elevator shaft is up. So that they've moved very quickly on this, and will continue to do so.
And there'll be a lot of the building built before they take down the rear steel building. There's still some tenants in there, and they need the land mass to be able to keep building, and then they'll start tearing it down.
Any idea on the tear down timing?
Late this winter.
Okay.
Their goal is still to be open by July, by the Democrat National Convention. So we'll.
Interesting.
I think if you saw the last few months of Mandel, people were climbing all over themselves trying to get that thing done. We'll probably see that over there as well.
Just a note, the pool's frozen, so. The Highway 100 corridor study is ongoing. Tomorrow night, we have a public meeting on November 13th at 5:30 at Lane Intermediate School. The whole idea is it's gonna be DOT style with some boards up highlighting some of their concepts and thoughts about the Highway 100 corridor, of ideas that have been concluded, or recommendations that are gained from focus groups in the public survey and the public, the prior public meeting that's been conducted. I did want to go back to this slide. The potential redevelopment of the former Pick and Save on 111th and Greenfield has been, I should say, stymied, and it's not moving forward at this time. So they had some ownership challenges with the prospective redevelopment. So we can't, at this point, we do not have that project moving forward.
We're still working on it, though.
Yes.
Can we get the results of the Highway 100 study?
Sure. In fact, the CDA it'll be a joint between Plan Commission Council, and it'll be a council meeting, and Plan Commission can come, CDA can come, and it'll be the final presentation that they'll give on the survey from Ginsler.
Tomorrow night is just more citizen input, or it'll be like a DOT style. You just come in, look around, and ask questions of the consultants, and then they'll come back with a final report.
So,
Yeah, I'm looking for the final report.
Yep. This is National Avenue.
Just showing National Avenue, that building is gone.
Yeah, what's gonna happen there?
It'll sit there and be vacant.
Yeah. And who tore it down? Was it us or
The
an
city,
entity of us?
because of blight elimination, we tore it down. So we don't own it. It's still owned by the estate.
It's the florist. Yeah.
But we're still working to see if we can get a larger development in that area, but at least that eyesore is finally eradicated.
Approved sightlines.
What this is 7030 West National Avenue.
Tear down is an
We
improvement.
received an inquiry, and now it's gone into our proposal for a mixed-use building to be built on 70th and National. The one thing to note is that there's $324,000 in back taxes and interest and penalties, plus another $152,200 that the city invested in the demolition of the prior expert auto building that was there. So if you looked at probably the total delinquency on the property, it's $476,000. This will be coming before the Common Council at next week's Common Council meeting as a discussion item relative to how do we proceed with this proposal and working with Milwaukee County. I'm just bringing it to your attention that, we have a proposal here for a $2.3 million building, and the individual represents he has bank financing and he's capitalized, ready to go. So,
It's to build a dental clinic and then 2 stories of apartments above it.
Is it the-
The
we have a
lap-
couple more.
Okay.
Just a brief update, 1603 South 81st Street, the owners of the Bass Bay Brew House, it's a restaurant group, has purchased, just closed on it this afternoon, the former Borgwart funeral home site, and they plan to reuse it for a restaurant and event space. Very exciting vision for the property and exciting to see this investment in the neighborhood. It's overall be a $1.2 million project. They'll likely be coming to the CDA at some point. This is part of our 81st Street was part of our National Avenue study, and as part of that results of that study, there were some economic development incentives towards certain uses like restaurants, so we have a forgivable loan program for up to $50,000 towards equipment, $8,500 forgivable loan towards code compliance, and then facade grant, $20,000 to $30,000 range. So that'll likely just kind of a precursor to what you may see coming down the line. The CDA may see.
The nice thing about these development group was they were asking, what about the rest of that commercial corridor? And we're going, that's exactly what we want you to be concerned about, because what you're going to be doing here is going to be helping us to re-spark that enthusiasm. We see some starting out on the Greenfield Avenue with Polly's Pub, but buying more bars and stuff, and at the other end with restaurant revitalization. So we want to see the whole corridor cleaned up. And anything else?
Yep, 1 second. And then 6610 West Greenfield Avenue, the Reunion proposed project has received Plan Commission approval, and they are working towards a December closing on the property, so that financing will be coming forward. This is kind of like they want to do it the industrial type of look inside, and more of an architectural where walls are exposed, and just kind of a unique type of architectural statement. They've outlined volleyball courts outside. That's something that the investor on the site has said his patrons said would be a nice addition, including bags and have an outdoor fire pit. And you kind of see it's gone through Plan Commission and received approval. That one will be coming before you here in December in terms of for sale of the property.
Is that the last one?
That's the last one.
Any other questions regarding any of the redevelopment initiatives? If not, can I have a motion for adjournment of the meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting stands adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to call our November 12th meeting of the Common Council to order. I will ask our clerk to call the roll.
Alderman May.
Here.
Frankie. Frankie.
You're here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here.
Road. Here. Stefanski.
Here.
Vitale.
Here.
Weigel.
Here.
Barzak.
Here.
Shaplesky.
Here.
Haas.
Here.
And Lysick.
Here.
That's 10 present.
A quorum is present. Please rise and join us in the pledge, which will be led by Alderman May this evening. Now, we will move right to item D. We have one public hearing this evening, and I will ask our clerk to present that and read that.
The 2020 City of West Allis Mayor's Recommended Budget.
Thank you. Ms. Grill and Ms. Stino.
Good evening. I'm Rebecca Grill. I'm the city administrator for the city of West Allis, and I'm joined by the finance director, Peggy Stino. And we're going to give a brief overview of the mayor's 2020 recommended budget and action plan. First thing that we consider when we put together the budget is our vision statement and mission statement for the cities. These are provided on the screen for you. The vision statement is something that we're striving to move towards, aspiring towards, and we're trying to be the preferred community in the Metro Milwaukee area and larger region. Our mission statement is to provide cost-effective municipal services for our citizens and businesses, provide for health, safety, and welfare of the community, quality living and working environment, and provide a positive, progressive, and creative approach to the budget and management and operations of the city. Along with that, we have our core values that our employees are held to: service excellence, continuous improvement, being open and transparent, renewal, and equitable. The slide has too small of numbers, but this has the demographics of the city of West Allis compared to our neighboring communities and Milwaukee County and the state of Wisconsin. So the median household income for the city of West Allis is almost $48,000. Those who are qualified for SNAP benefits is over 14.6. The age for the city of West Allis is 38, the median age, and then there's about 27,000 occupied housing unit, 1,800 vacant units. Owner occupied are almost 53%. Renter occupied is a little over 47%. The median housing value is almost 140,000. And the estimate from our population for 2017 is a little over 60,000. In 2017, the Common Council adopted a strategic plan which includes 5 goals. The first is image, brand, destination. The second is quality of life. Third, citizen engagement, economic vitality and sustainability, and the 5th is excellence in government. Before we go into how we're going to be accomplishing these goals for 2020, I just want to do a brief recap of what 2019 has brought towards the goals. For the goal number 1, this is the first year we've done our first complete year of our branding and marketing campaign. Phase 1 of the National Avenue Corridor plan was completed. There's a bus shelter at 92nd and National Avenue was installed. The farmers market celebrated the 100th anniversary, and we had a new brand and marketing plan for that. In regards to quality of life, the data that we have For 2019 versus 2018, it shows a decrease of crime of 23%, which is significant. Then we've also installed bike boxes on National Avenue. We're working on opening our first dog park, and the sidewalk poetry was installed on some of the sidewalks. In regards to citizen engagement, we launched a new website for the City of West Allis and had increased website visits by 100%. We held our second annual Homeowner Resource Fair, and then we also had the Better Block Foundation program at 60th and Burnham. For economic vitality and sustainability, there was $15 million allocated for the new market tax credits to support working capital. We worked with Cobalt Partners to acquire 70th and Greenfield, 9 acres there for $87 million redevelopment. We've also launched the Kiva City Initiative, streamlined our payroll and benefit budgets, consolidated a lot of our public works account for ease of accounting and simplifying budgeting, and we implemented the total benefit package, significant reduction of our OPEB liability from 147 to $119 million. That is the other post-employment benefits. That's what OPEB stands for. And then finally, for goal number 5, reaccreditation of our health department, our fire department, and our police department. 100% of our property maintenance complaints are investigated within 24 hours of receipt. And we also won 3 CMA Savvy Awards for our rebranding and our website implementation. So that's just some of the initiatives that we accomplished towards the strategic plan in 2019. Going forward, as part of the mayor's recommended budget, these are some of the goals that we're going to be working towards for 2020. Some of them are included to implement in the budget. Some of them are to look into implementing either in 2020 or in future years. And one of the first things is streamlining our events permitting and licensing process. Then we're also going to be working with a consulting firm to implement mural creation through our Artscape grant program. That's not city funded, it's not a city funded program. It's outside of the general fund budget. Looking at reallocating one of our positions to possible business liaison position to assist businesses with working through the city processes. Create a development assistant team, which would sit down with businesses that are looking to open up in the city of West Allis, to sit down with the different departments to understand all of the things that they would need to accomplish to open their business. Looking at reallocation of citizen committees to expand responsibilities to a park building and grounds commission, a subcommittee of the capital improvement committee. So there's a increased focus on our parks and buildings in the parks. Looking at funding opportunities to implement a grant program for the Burnham Point revitalization, to continue building on the Better Block initiative that was held there earlier this year, and then look at expanding that Better Block initiative to other neighborhoods that might need some assistance in revitalization. The second is the quality of life budget priorities. So we're looking at expanding and replacing a lot of our security cameras. That helps with the police department for investigating crimes and looking into different things. And we've had a number of them already in place for some time, so we need to replace them, but we also need to add some in different locations to be more effective. Looking for implementing or adding into our general fund budget the crisis assessment response team officer. This previously was funded through Milwaukee County funds. Those funds end on December 31st. Looking at working with the school district to explore the addition of a school resource officer, a part-time one at Lane Intermediate School. working with capital funding restrictions, but to replace and install fleet and interview room cameras for the police department. Looking at expanding the fire department intern program to WCTC. I believe it's just with METC right now, and this will expand it to WCTC. Creating a preventive maintenance program for our city parks and open spaces. Develop street lighting conversion plan, and implementing a memory cafe for seniors with city departments and outside agencies. The third strategic goal is citizen engagement. So we're working, this year we had implemented a West Allis Cares program, which is a training program for our employees. We're going to be expanding that to citizens for a Citizen 101 program. We're going to look at increasing the information from our property files that would be available online for citizens for ease of use and finding that information. Looking at options to accept online payments for the majority of our city services. This is something that people have been requesting. It would help streamline some of our processes. Develop and customer and citizen feedback surveys, and then have a review process to do something with the information that you receive, make some changes. Expand the role of our communication strategists to work more with the neighborhood associations and in coordination with the development and the police community service officers. And then work at expanding our citizen resident guide to English and Spanish, and then bring that to other publications that the city has as would be appropriate. The fourth goal is economic vitality and sustainability. So we're looking at implementing a structural deficit action team to make recommendations for service delivery changes. This year we had a significant deficit of, we had significant amount of requests above the amount that we could increase our budget. So in order to go forward, so we are not doing this on an annual basis, we need to make some changes. So this team would be looking through to provide recommendations for the council to consider. Looking at creating a shared position with the bins and assessor's office to look at the residential revaluation and improve the accuracy of the record. Revaluation of residential properties. We just completed the commercial properties this year. So moving that on to the residential properties, that would be a 3-year process. Work to reduce the cost for publications. The state requires that we publish things in a lot of newspapers and things like that, and there's different ways that you can still comply with the legal requirements, but maybe consolidate and save some money. Reduce and consolidate the number of printers that we have. Look on focusing on organizational-wide risk management and emergency government. Implement electronic parking citations. Expand how we use the retired squad cars. Right now they're used by bins inspection staff, maybe looking at more departments to use those vehicles. Facilitate collaboration between citizen-facing service delivery departments and streamlining of department inspection processes. The fifth strategic goal is excellence in government, and the budget priorities for this are working towards selection of virtual city hall software, increasing technology training opportunities for staff. We have invested in a lot of different technology and just making sure that people have the opportunity to learn how to use that the most effective way possible. Implement Office 365, look at providing mobile technology for increased efficiency, reduce the time to fill for our vacant position, converting records and processes to an HRIS and performance system in our HR department, acquire electronic polling books, increase city staff involvement in the election process to ensure accuracy and increase accountability. In 2020, we're going to have 4 elections, and there'll be a significant amount of people involved in that. So having our staff involved will help with the accuracy of that. Implement a boards and commissions module for our Legistar program to increase efficiency with the appointment process. That would be for our boards, commissions, and committee members. Change the codification provider and expand the use of that software to also include our policy and procedure maintenance as well as the municipal code. Standardizing citywide applications for permits, licensing forms, and et cetera. And then look at realigning our strategic plan to make sure that it is aligned with what the citizens currently are looking for. We completed a residential survey this year, and we'll be utilizing that to work towards realigning those activities. The challenges that we face with putting together the budget, the first is the expenditure restraint program. I'll explain a little bit more about that on the next slide. The second is the recruiting and retention of high quality employment. In this environment, the lowest unemployment since the 1969. It's been challenging to recruit and retain employees. We have a lot of facility repairs and maintenance. We completed the facility audit several years ago, and there's a significant amount of maintenance that we need to do to our facilities. We have a lot of challenges with our keeping up with the road sewer replacement, and then our current challenge with the street lights. And then we have, going back to the demographics of the taxpayers, there's limitations on how much people can pay for taxes. And then another consideration is levy limits, but because of the expenditure restraint program, at this time that does not really affect the city of West Allis. The expenditure restraint program is a program where the state of Wisconsin provides money to municipalities, but they do that in a manner which limits the growth in spending. So it's calculated by the rate of budget. The rate of budget growth cannot exceed inflation rate plus an adjustment based on the growth in municipal property values. In our municipality, we don't have a significant increase in property values, so our expenditure restraint program numbers don't go up significantly from year to year. The program limit that what we can increase our budget by for 2020 is $1.455 million. That's our requests for this year were in excess of $3 million. So there is quite the challenge to stay within that limit. If we do stay within that limit, we receive about $1.5 million from the state for adhering to the program requirements. 86.1% of the 2020 budget is allocated towards personnel costs. That has to do with salary and benefits. We have a total of almost 752 positions. 178 of those are more of a temporary nature, a lot of them being election workers. So 574 are benefited positions. Almost 520 are funded through the general fund, and then about 54 are funded through other funding sources. Little over 51% of our personnel are allocated to public safety, and then engineering and public works is almost 27%, general government is 11.6%, and then health, culture, and recreation is 10.4%. The general fund revenues that we receive, the majority of that is from property taxes. As you can see, it's over 61%. We also receive it from other funding sources, the intergovernmental license permit fees, penalties and forfeitures, charges for services, miscellaneous items, and then transfers. This is a slide that just shows the actual expenditures for 2017-18, the budget from 2019, and then what we're looking at for 2020 regard to those different funds in general government, public safety, public works, health, culture, and recreation. So the majority of our expenditures go to our public safety departments. It's over 56% of the budget. Then next is public works at 19.15, general government 16.69, and then health, culture, and recreation is 7.76. So a little background information on the equalized value, assessed value, local tax rate. Probably the most popular rate on this is the local tax rate. The estimate is at 11.56 for 2019. We don't have the overall tax rate because we're still waiting for information from other taxing authorities. You see that the general fund revenues equal the general fund expenditures. Those, we cannot exceed the amount of money that we're taking in with our budgeting process. This is a fact sheet regarding the budget. On this form, it breaks it down by the different sections of government, but towards the bottom, the last blue section of note is what the taxes would be on $150,000 home. In 2019, they were about $1,729. For 2020, the estimate is that they would be $1,733, an increase of $467. The next steps for the process is we'll be meeting with Administration and Finance Committee following this public hearing tonight, and then the council will be considering the recommended budget next Tuesday at the Common Council meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if there's any questions.
Does anybody from the Common Council have questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Vitale?
Yeah, Rebecca, I would like to ask you the portion of the benefits in regard to the reduction of the OPB.
The OPEB?
Yeah, OPEB. So why was 147 million? Now it's down to 114 million. So what's the difference? I mean, if you can explain.
I believe some of it had to do with different accounting measures, but a majority of it had to do with the implementation of the total benefit package. Yes. I think that changed how long people would be getting their post-retirement benefits and things like that. So that was one of the reasons why the council saw fit to implement that program for new employees. And as time goes on, the OPEB liability will decrease even more.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Seeing none, are there any members of the audience with questions?
Well, I see Ed. Deputy Chief, Pete, Tony.
All of you? Okay. If there are no questions from our audience this evening, I will close our public hearing, and I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mayor Devine.
Alderman Lysick.
I move that we adjourn until our next regularly scheduled meeting, Tuesday, November 19th at 7 p.m.
Second.
There's a motion with a second by Alderperson Reinke. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We are adjourned.
fire department does.
More cheat sheets. Thank you.
Just include any of that.
My stuff.
I might need.
I gave her one already. Seconds here. Are you guys ready?
I don't think so. I gotta put it
see
in
him.
second.
I just, let me find my agenda.
I thought that you were talking with her.
Do you have a extra pen?
All right.
Thank you.
I'm gonna take mine back then.
Apparently I
All right, we'll
left it
call the
somewhere.
Administration and Finance Committee meeting to order. All 5 members are present. And new and previous matters, number 1 is the 2020 City of West Allis Mayor's recommended budget. Who wants to go? What's this?
I passed Rebecca Grill, City Administrator. I'm here with Peggy Stino, who's our Finance Director. Passed out a sheet of funding options. We discussed last week when we met different things that, priorities that should be considered for funding. And this sheet has that information. There's different categories. The first is is bonding, including bonding for the streetlight conversion. If the estimates are, if we do that next year, we would need $800,000 if we did it internally, or $1.6 million if we contract that, including $505,000 for public works equipment purchases, because those are not in the general fund budget. There's a list of capital improvement committee bonding recommendations: emerald ash borer removal, tree replacement planting, boulevard landscape bend consolidation, playground improvements, fire station 3 HVAC, health department facility maintenance, library facility maintenance improvements, concrete saw, electronic parking citations, security camera replacement, Office 365 expansions, and electronic poll books, for a total of $544,248. The overall bonding is over $2.6 million. This would be on top of the bonding that is normally done for streets. Then the second section, we're estimating about $573,000 possibly for carryover, barring any major events in the next month and a half. So the recommendation is to allocate that towards the fire department debt payment, the chiller replacement, community development grant restriction, traffic engineering for possible removal of traffic signals, FDA fund replacement, PC replacements for 2020, municipal yard overhead door, municipal yard north garage maintenance, and the inventory charge out. 3 of those items you'll see towards the right of the document. It's saying that we should do those things in 2019. So that includes the PC replacements. Then the next, we had additional expenditure restraint in a little over $55,000. We do have AssetWorks, which is a new software in our public works facility. So there's a subscription cost for that of $55,000. So we'd recommend utilizing the additional expenditure restraint amount for that. And then if there's any amendments that result in additional taking additional capacity, we would recommend moving those into a fund for emergency operational repairs. The last 3 items are the fire department intern funding, residential reval, and the neighborhood specialist position. This, our At this point, there's no capacity for these unless there's significant changes in the budget. So if there's some type of changes through the structural deficit committee or something like that, which realizes more capacity for 2020, we would recommend bringing those things back into the budget and funding those through that. At the bottom of the,
Mr. Chair. That's all right. Just to make sure I understand here, so this bonding would be, well, positive or negative, depending how you look at it. It's budget neutral to what we need to tax. The carryover here would be a positive to the budget. To be offset with these issues, right?
it
These
wouldn't
things?
affect the 2020, it's
These aren't
2019
in,
funds.
these aren't in the budget.
Okay. The ERP is not in the budget either, but we're saying we would include it, but use it for the Asset Works subscription. Okay, I just want to make sure I understand all this. And then the capacity realized in 2020, question mark, can you explain that one more time? This is additional funding that, if it becomes available, these are the things that we want to put in towards, correct?
That's what our
Just wanna make sure I
recommendation
got it all
is. Yeah,
straight.
if
All right.
there's service delivery changes that result in excess capacity that we would be wanting for future years, but it likely would also result in some additional capacity during 2020. That's what we would recommend allocating that money towards.
Yeah, and further, just also so I have it straight, we would be able to afford and pay for everything in here except for these three items that I circled right here. Those are the three things
Correct.
that we're not going to do, we're not going to pay for, these three right here.
And if
Okay.
I could just,
Yep.
one more thing, we do have, I mean, the 2.6 in borrowing, that's a lot of money in addition to the 3.75. But the estimate that we have for 2019 is, it's the best we could do, but it's pretty conservative. So my hope would be that we would have a little bit more than that available, and we perhaps could use some of it to not have to borrow, kind of like we did in the past years. So this would be a worst-case scenario.
Some of the 544,000 items listed there.
Yeah, and Peggy, you had explained to our capital improvement committee about municipal borrowing and comparisons to what other cities are doing on this, and can you explain that for our group here also?
So lucky for us, we're in 2019 and we're first considering this at this point. Unfortunately, a number of cities have used this for a long time because capital outlay has basically been pushed out of most municipal budgets, probably going back to Act 1032 changes in 2011-12. So this is not an uncommon, this is certainly within all the realm of the accounting rules and regulations, but keep in mind, we have to pay it back. So it might not mean anything to the taxpayer this year, but then next year when we have to make our first debt payment, that's when it begins impacting the taxpayers. But yeah, most communities, this is how they pay for capital items is through some additional borrowing.
And they have been doing it for many years, but this just happens to be a newer thing for us.
And Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Alderman Plesky. Or Alderman May, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
That's right. And the interest payment on this in future years, or we have to account for principal plus interest in future.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Right, cost more, absolutely.
It's probably what, 170,000? Am I close?
If you can tell me if there's gonna be a recession next year, I could probably tell you, but
What's the interest rate gonna be next
rates
year?
are pretty low right now. I mean, we're expecting under 3 right now for our borrowing for 2019. If it remains that way, we'd probably be looking at, worst case scenario, about 80,000 a year.
Oh, okay.
Starting at the beginning, and then of course going down as we pay off the principal.
Alderman Weigel.
Related to that borrowing, I want to take advantage of low interest rates. And I'm looking at like the chiller replacement. That looks like that could be bonded for, right? If we're bonding for HVAC at the fire station, why wouldn't we roll that chiller replacement into that package also?
So we could certainly do that, but the next category, the second category of carryovers, those are pretty much funds that you can only use for one-time items as well. So we're
Okay,
just
so we want to
saying we'll-
use that carryover up on that.
We use that,
Okay.
well, we just want to use our
We use that first.
carryover up before we have to pay money for money.
Okay, okay. And then of our 3 remaining things,
Is this how we've prioritized it, 1, 2, and 3 in the order they're shown here? Is that any particular order? No?
No.
Okay.
Leave that to the council to prioritize.
I'm just wondering what staff's recommendation was on that. So obviously they're different dollar amounts too.
Right.
Comes to funding as well.
Yeah.
Mickey, I tried to call on you before.
Right,
You
it's
know.
okay. I don't know where in this stuff it was, but I think we have put priorities for the carryovers on another sheet. On what was the top priority of that? I know it wasn't fire department debt fund. What? I got so many sheets, I don't know.
So, yeah, so those are the ones we talked about last time, so the majority of them are in the second category of carryover. The first one was that general fund health insurance contribution, and we actually subtracted that because, as we discussed yesterday at our employee
Right.
benefits committee, we're gonna try to make some adjustments to the health
So-
insurance plan in order to accommodate that, because the dollars will go much further this way.
Oh,
the capital
so
needs.
because of that, we don't have to use the money there.
Correct, and we're trying to look for the most unimpactful changes that will get us revenues, and it could be some things like change in premium share, step therapy on drugs, different things like that. So we're trying to not just trade dollar for dollar, but make just a little bit better decisions so we can fund a few more things and still have a viable health plan.
And this Bonnie, you're right, we have to pay it all back. But this is for this year. What, every year now we're gonna be doing this? And paying back 80,000 or so every year?
Yeah.
So we just keep going down this hill, and eventually we're gonna hit the bottom somewhere.
Unfortunately, that's the path where we'd be on.
Or major service
It's
cuts.
hard, I was gonna say, in service delivery changes could perhaps lighten this load as well, but we all saw the capital infrastructure study. This is minimal compared to all of the needs we have going on, but like the street lighting one, we wouldn't expect that to go away for at least 13 years.
Right. How about all the cuts that Alder May brought up in the last administration finance meeting? A whole list of things.
He has a list of them. I was gonna let him present those.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's actually, I think, the 50,000 right here, the amendments.
that's all?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because he took into account the other 55 already that I was gonna bring up, so.
Well, there was one in, Chairman, please. There was one in there that I, with all my notes, I didn't mention it at our last administration finance meeting, but it's for training and travel for the common council. Got budgeted $22,355. I think $2,355 would be fine. We should take another 20,000 from there. It says right here, 22,000.
I don't have that.
That's-
I'll look over your shoulder. What, I mean,
Well in excess of,
I remember the figure.
Yes, I
And you
think a
brought it
little
back.
excessive.
what page is that?
I don't
Page
know,
20.
I don't know if Road put some vacation in there or something,
Yeah.
that it went up so much. Page 20, yeah. Yeah.
I've been to the legislative chamber at the Caymans, maybe I should write that off. Oh, wait.
So that includes some memberships as well. Actually, 15,855 is memberships.
Is that like the APW memberships?
No, this is.
NLC?
CAD, ICC,
So you
Public Policy Forum, Wisconsin League of Municipalities, and National League of Cities.
Which the National League one is the one I'm proposing to cut out. So it'd be $3,400.
So then there's 6,500 in training and travel per se.
So
They
it's
get
training,
grouped
travel,
together.
and membership.
Correct.
Okay, and then Rebecca, you were gonna talk about the staff adjustments, I think, before.
Sure.
You got interrupted by me, so please go ahead.
On the bottom of the sheet, we list out the additional capacity of the expenditure restraint, which is 55,578, and then allocating that to the asset work subscription payment. We have to, when we expend, we need to have some revenues that match that expenditure. So there's some revenues listed here. Fire inspection fee change that was approved by the council last week the estimate for that is $36,000. Dividends from CIVMIC, estimate of $6,000 that we didn't have previously. There is also a reduction of the municipal service payment revenue. We get municipal service payment from the state of Wisconsin because the state fair is located in the city of West Allis. However, the legislature does not fund it at a full capacity, so I believe our estimate of what we should be receiving is well in excess of $600,000.
It's about 38% that they're
Yeah.
funding it at.
So we get about 200 some thousand.
And they're cutting 21,000 this year.
Correct, 21,000
Yes,
less
more.
than last.
Less than last year.
Yes. So we have to take that out. So it's kind of a negative revenue. We thought we had it and we don't when we were putting the budget together. And then the last item is perhaps additional through taxes, but it would be not affecting the rate.
I was gonna
correct?
say, if we could perhaps run through revenues again, you know, we have some wild cards in there, some interest income and different things like that. I'm pretty sure we could come up with 34,000 and not have to change the tax rate structure at this point. Certainly council's preference, but about 1 penny of tax rate is 38,000.
Sure.
Alderman Weigel.
That fire inspection fee, that's the false alarm fee. Aren't we, is that based on the number of false alarms we had last year? Aren't we gonna expect that, that's not gonna stay static? People are gonna figure out, cut down their false alarms, that number's gonna go down over the years.
Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Chableski.
But wait, I thought we raised the fee and then in additional, these are false alarm fees.
This
That's
is
not-
new, this is new money, this 36K is that.
We had false alarm fees for police, but not for fire.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
that,
Alderman
okay.
Chableski is correct, though. We raised our inspection fees, actually
Right.
increased it significantly. Like for apartment inspections and.
We pretty much doubled that,
Right.
but we've
They're
already
all
got
from
that
the
accounted
80s.
for.
So, but, okay.
I'm
Yeah,
saying is that that as soon as people get the first bill for the first one, they're gonna put duct tape over their pull box and
Yeah.
You'd be amazed
Yeah.
how they just,
they don't care,
Doing it.
cause they don't get the bill, cause the,
well,
yeah.
sometimes it's not preventable
Yeah.
because it's like a bigger company and
That's a
different
tech
things
issue
like
or
that.
something,
Industrial facilities, that kind of thing, but yeah, it's unfortunate that
Yeah.
you continue seeing.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, I don't think we can expect that number to be.
And this isn't
that
till the
next year.
third time. so
Yeah, I
it's
understand
the
that,
third.
yeah. What I'm saying is, once somebody gets that bill the first time, they're gonna talk to their employees or whoever's doing it.
Probably it wouldn't be the same in 2021.
Right.
Yeah, it might take
The
a year or two to
estimates,
teach
yeah.
people.
So.
Mr. Chair?
Alderman Root.
On the boulevard reduction, I guess, Mr. Webking, Dave, how many are we getting for $13,000 for the, I know what you're doing with your eliminating all the flowering
Approximately 4.
left or four to do?
4 to do, yeah, for this budgeted amount.
Okay.
4 boulevards.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman May.
got a couple questions. So even if that additional revenue was taken out, are we still at our ERP limit then?
It's taken out because this all nets to
This- the-
55. So revenue doesn't really impact ERP. It's
That's
just
what I'm
if
asking.
wanna
Are
make
we,
it
are we
taxes
at the
neutral.
ERP, I guess? Because
We would be at the ERP by adding the 55, we'd probably just add 55,578 for Asset Works.
But we're saying we can do it without taxing anybody. We don't have to
without
raise
changing the
additional
tax
penny.
rate. Correct.
Gotcha. And you said that the municipal payment, and so how that's calculated is the state sets aside a certain amount every year, and then it gets divided up among all the state properties, and that's what, all the other state properties are only getting 38% as well.
Right, they fund it across the board, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but basically what you're telling me is we're getting shortchanged $400,000, so our taxpayers are paying about 11 cents per thousand on their property taxes to help fund state fair. Is that about right?
About 505 would be funding it 100%.
Mm-hmm. Wow. An additional 505 from them?
No,
would be-
505 would be the total, and of that, they're giving us like 192.
Okay. Thank you. Just a interesting point.
Ms. Grill, keep on going.
I think think I was pretty much finished. The last thing was about talking about property tax or looking at the revenue estimates. So I think the direction is that we'll look through the revenue estimates and make adjustments as necessary.
Okay.
So we would, I don't know if Alderman May does have some suggestions for amendments. I don't know if you want to go through those. At some point, we would probably need some vote on whether we should consider this, but you might want to wait till he finishes.
Sure. I actually did have one more question though. This Asset Works, another 55,000. Is it another 55,000 for the subscription, or is it total?
Well, it's going to be an ongoing cost, but last year and this year, we've been in an implementation stage. We have been using reserves for that. But this year, when it gets to year 3, we really can't call that capital when all we're paying for is a subscription, and it's gonna be an operational cost. That's the reason to move it into the expenditures. So it's not unexpected that it's 55,000 more that we didn't know about. It was part of that total cost over 5 years. But now it's just becoming an operational cost. The implementation is done.
Are we making use of it? Is that
We're
sitting
working on
idle?
it.
No,
Okay,
yes.
good. All right.
That's Tony nodding.
Yes, it's being used.
You guys have anything? Anyone else wants to? All right, I'm gonna work bottom up, actually. No, I'm gonna start top down. The judge to the .9. So I had a conversation with Judge Murphy today to figure out what that was all about. And after that conversation, I think we should keep we should move the position for the judge back to either a .75 or a .9. The reason being is it allows, in the future, if someone wants to run for that position, it allows them to keep a private practice. And then, because this is the reason it was put to 1.0, I believe, is for the health and dental benefit. We can change that through policy from my discussion with Kale, so it actually suggests striking these top 2 items off my list.
Top 2 off your list?
Yeah. Except for the fact that we should make a decision on what we want to do with the judge, .75 or .9, but Murphy, again, was okay with that, with the changes that we would make to the policy.
And just as a starting point, the judge was .75, the budget was proposing to put him at 1.0, and you're proposing to change that to a .9 or a .75.
One of those two, it doesn't really much matter, because we'll accommodate, what this was meant to do, we can accommodate through a policy change, that 1.0, so it's really up to the committee. I went with .9, I don't really think it affects much else.
Yeah.
So, the other one would be alderperson insurance. The adjustments we made last week at council would save about $17,100, so I think we should adjust that. The Common Council Conference, that's a lot of C's, reduce it back to what the amount was in 2019, so that'd be reducing another $3,000 there.
What's the Common Council Conference?
There's a Common Council Conference budget. It's the one we were just talking about, conferences and seminars.
For us to go to conferences.
Right,
the
right.
National League of Cities Conference.
Yep.
In the Caymans.
It was the Caymans. I paid for it all myself.
These are bad. National League of Cities, I think we should definitely keep the Wisconsin League of Municipalities. It's been doing a lot of good for us, but the National League of Cities, I don't know if anyone else on the council seems to get any benefit from that, but I have not seen any benefit from that, other than, we send one person a year and it might save us a couple $100, but it doesn't make sense to spend $3,400 to save $200, if that makes, so I'm recommending we cut that
Can I
out.
speak to that, Mr. Chair? Yes, please, Mayor.
I guess last meeting you had said, what do we get out of them? 1 email a month?
Mm-hmm.
I looked back, and in the past month, I got 16 emails from them. I think that they offer a value, and I know several people in the room have attended these. Some of these conferences are stronger than others, but I really think, I know you've expressed interest but not been able to make it work. I'd really like you to get to one, and I would encourage other people to try to get to one before you make a decision like this. we, especially with at least 2 council members coming on that are gonna be new next year, which I think was the reasoning for putting in additional money to get at least 2 new people to attend the National League of Cities Conference. Every department in the city has got continuing education and training, and I think that this is what the Common Council's continuing education is. And I'm actually, the one in San Antonio coming up, I'm actually presenting about West Allis during the city spotlight. I have developed a network of mayors across the country that I can bounce ideas off of, from Maryland to Illinois to California. There is a first-tier suburbs council, which deals with a lot of the issues in areas that are right next to major cities. The whole Better Block project that we did on 60th and Burnham came from something I saw at one of those conferences years ago. The Business First Open Your Own Business Guide came from a program on a presentation from a city in South Carolina. Right now, there are 2 mayors in Wisconsin that are on their way to DC through the National League of Cities to talk about inclusive housing. That's the mayor of Stevens Point and the mayor of Wisconsin Rapids. Mayor Eli was actually flown in through the National League from Wauwatosa a couple of weeks ago to talk about federal priorities on the national lobbying scene. I think things like block grants always potentially being cut, dealing with homeless and substance abuse issues on the national level are all very important. And I really would encourage you to think very hard about, like you said too, if we save 3,400, you're gonna instantly gobble up. If we send 2 council members, you're gonna instantly lose $200 to $300 in registration fees right off the bat, so you could lose, $600 to $900 in the attendees next year alone. And I would just say, I know Vitaly's attended. I think that gets more than you might realize out of the National League, and I think that's a kind of organization that you get what you put into it, and I think it's a small price for what we get.
And I agree with the mayor on that. There's value in just seeing what other people do and how they do it, and having that point of comparison. And the big point that I was going to bring up, the mayor already mentioned, is the whole Better Block Foundation that all came out of the National League of Cities Conference. That is definitely very valuable to us.
Mr. Chair?
Please.
Just, so, the conference budget actually went up 3,400. I suggested cutting 3,000 of that off. So it would keep a couple hundred extra to accommodate an older person would still be able to go to that conference. I'm just saying, I don't know if we need to be members as common council members. If the mayor is a member, I think some of the department heads might be as well. Is that correct?
This is city
It's a city,
membership.
one city bill.
Oh, so you can't it's just allocated this way in the, okay.
We're not all
Well, that
individual
explains
members.
something. Okay. I thought it was individual memberships. Yeah. I'm not proposing to cut it citywide. That wasn't what my goal was.
If I am understanding the sense that this would do.
Yes.
It's actually half of it. Fire pays the other half for Spring Industrial Enterprise.
Okay. I was unaware of that.
Welcome.
I
Yeah.
I thought the mayor had their own,
Pay
your
the whole
allocation, we had our allocation. I'm like, well, we can still go to the conference. You're a member. We still get all the benefits, but you're saying that can't happen. Okay, well, that changes things a little bit. Okay, well, unless anyone disagrees. maybe
No,
we should
leave it in.
keep those in there then. And I imagine Common Council conferences would be like, when we have the new member seminar that Wisconsin League of Municipalities puts on, which we want to send the older people to so they know basic Parley Pro and things like that. Okay. Did you account for this, the fire department expense in your numbers? Okay. The fire department had something budgeted for next year that they actually already used $2019 for, so this is just a $6,000 adjustment to that. The Aurora Hospital donation, my recommendation would be to eliminate that. Up until a few years ago, we never gave a donation to the hospital for their yearly drive. It looks like the mayor's recommended budget already cut 15 out of it. This would cut the other 10. So it'd be another way to save and allocate towards other resources. The APWA membership. Now this is where now you've got me thinking, right? So this membership that we have for National League of Cities is citywide, it's just allocated to the departments. Is APWA a per person, or is it?
Yeah.
So right now, and I'm not on the Public Works Committee, Alderman Lysick, you are as well, Vince. The 5 people on the Public Works Committee have memberships automatically to APWA. But my thinking on that is if the staff already is getting the magazines and things like that, that stuff can be shared with the council members. So we could possibly save $975 if we cut the elder people, those 5 elder people off the Public Works Committee off that membership. So I know this is scraping for pennies, but
Adds up.
I tell you.
Well, it's important for leadership though too. You know, we're asking everyone else to,
Yes.
on every budget going forward, and so we need to show some leadership.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Vitale.
I know I'm sitting lower, but I'm standing.
I couldn't even see you back there, Vince.
But anyway.
There you are.
Reference of the hospital, you know, we have to realize, you know, Aurora, of course, they're running, West Allis Hospital, they ran for years, you know, so now it's Aurora. But the fact is, we still collect from West Allis Hospital over $400,000 per year. So, to me, I mean, the $10,000 that we give really is for the welfare and health for people needing, that money goes towards. It's not somebody, you know, just, you know, hospital, they put it in their pockets. So to me, it does help the community, the needing people, you know, those funds are used for people that need some help. You know, to me, I mean, I can't just take it away the $10,000, we receive over $400,000 per year, you know, so I mean, that's one thing that I always felt that the hospital, we give that money, you know, I think that's a good gesture in our part, you know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alderman Vitale.
One more?
Mr. Chair, can I?
Yep,
I
please.
Just wanted to also, and this is just for consideration in the discussion, but Aurora does, they sponsor National Night Out, I believe.
I know they have in the past, I'm not sure if they currently do.
I'm just thinking if that $10,000 is a two-way street, we should really consider what we're getting. They did contribute through their service club $20,000 towards the fitness court at Betts Park. I know I felt some heartburn when we're giving them $25,000 when we're struggling to provide services, but I just ask that the council considers if we start pulling back on some of our generosity, they may start pulling back on some of it.
And Alderman Lysick.
I agree with the mayor and Alderman Vitale. Aurora is our city's largest employer. They've been a great partner with the city. They participate in our charitable events. They always buy tickets and table and make donations for the food breakfast, the Thanksgiving breakfast. They buy it for the annual charity dinner that we have, that our foundation has. So it's kind of a reciprocal thing. I mean, they always buy a table or so for these events and make contributions. And I think in recognition of the fact that they put on a number of programs for city residents, and they invite older people. I know Alderman Haas, Alderman Reinke, and myself have been to some of their programs on drug awareness, mental health issues, that type of thing. So they add a benefit to the community, a very big benefit, and in my opinion, they've been a good partner. And I don't think we want to hurt that relationship. I think we want to foster it, and you know, when they have a fundraiser for a specific activity at West Allis Memorial, they have once a year, and we make a contribution towards that. I think it's an appropriate gesture on our part.
Okay. Alderman May, keep going.
So there's one more, and this one, I talked to Rebecca, the position that we're creating.
We have an events coordinator position already, and one of the initiatives that person is responsible for is working with the mayor to get sponsorships for our celebrations, such as the 4th of July events, the fireworks, and the parades. So to provide a stretch goal for them, I think that they could eliminate an additional $10,000 for that and can work to get sponsorships for that event.
So that's where that came from.
Okay. Okay.
So do we have to act on each of these separately or get consensus or?
Yeah, I think that it would be best to act on each of them separately. I think some, two that we're going to have some difference of the minds on are the Aurora donation and the conference. But Alderman May, with our discussion, you're willing to not just strike the conference and not make that amendment? Is that
I
correct?
think that training is necessary for new alder people.
Okay, thank you for that.
Is that the conference or is that the National League of Cities? I'm sorry. Is it, which one is it that you're,
Well, definitely the National League of Cities, I think we're gonna have to put back in because.
okay. And then also the $3,000 for the conferences?
And what does that get us again? It gets us the new.
That's training for
Right.
new
Yeah.
alders.
Yeah, they have that governing 101 in
Yeah.
Green Bay. I think that's
It's
valuable.
the league annual conference and then the National League of Cities attendance.
Yeah, I'm okay with striking both of those. Especially the Wisconsin conference is phenomenal. There's a lot to be learned and gained. Everyone should go to one of those.
So my proposal then is we vote as a committee on the Aurora Hospital donation singly, and then we move on to the other items as a group, if you wish, if no one has an objection there. All right, so yeah, Alderman May, can you make a motion on the Aurora Hospital donation?
Sure. I would move to cut the Aurora Hospital donation
To zero?
to zero.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No. So it's 2 in favor, 3 opposed, so the motion fails.
And I would move the other changes shown in the table, including the alderperson insurance adjustment as a credit, the fire expense as a credit, the APWA cancellation, and then the 4th of July as well.
And you want the judge to .9, or you deal with that as a
Maybe a separate item.
separate item? So
Yeah,
we're not
top- the
including
top
the
two.
judge to .9.
Correct.
So there's a motion, is there a
Second.
second? We have a motion and a second, any discussion on those issues? All in favor? Oh, please, Alderperson Reinke.
As far as July 4th, I have tried in the past, when I was chair of the committee, to get sponsors. I've sent many letters out to businesses in our community, even out of our community, and I have been very unsuccessful. I agree we should probably try again for the sponsorships, but if it isn't successful, then I would hate to see the 10,000 taken out of the funding for July 4th, because that is a very successful community function. We have a lot of participation, and I would hesitate just to seek out the sponsors if no sponsor comes forth. $10,000, that takes care of most of our fireworks. Okay, you want to do without the fireworks? I mean, that is something to consider. But it would have to be a very, very heavy worded letter to get our businesses to respond, especially in light of sometimes the business itself is having difficulties. There are many successful businesses in West Allis, so the letter would have to be very, very forthcoming.
All caps?
But as I indicated to you, I did try.
I think, Mr. Chair. Please. One of the things we've been discussing for 2020 is to try to have companies basically buy in as a package and have different levels
Sponsorship.
at the beginning of the year rather than having to go to them 4 or 5 times for various events. So see if we can get $2,000 commitments, $5,000 commitments, $500 commitments from various levels of, companies and businesses, large and small, and trying to have them in January, February commit to sponsoring throughout the year, and then, looking for title sponsorships for things like the fireworks if we need them.
Oh, it's an excellent idea.
If
I certainly support the idea, it's just that, okay, it has to be done
Yeah, and I think
very carefully.
Caitlin and I have discussed really visiting personally, and
And I think that would probably
Arm twisting.
be
Yeah.
helpful. Mhm.
Mr. Chair.
My concern is though, if you're taking it out and we don't get anything in return,
Yeah.
that's my concern.
Ms. Grill.
There was at one
Oh.
time, I'm sorry, there was at one time, one of the banks that sponsored the entire fireworks program. But Wells Fargo it was at that time, but
Mhm.
they pulled out, and so the city is footing the whole bill. So,
Didn't you get a bang for the buck?
a matter of consideration. If you feel that it's gonna be very successful, fine, but if it isn't, then
And I plan to ask Peggy what banks we keep our money in, and then.
Oh, there you go. That's it. Nice.
Go to them first.
We have lottery, and the winner gets to light the fuse.
thank you.
Yeah, right.
Mr. Chair.
And Ms. Grill.
One of the things that was before the Administration and Finance Committee last week and the Common Council had to do with the sponsorship policy, allowing more of that to occur so people would actually have their names attached to the donation. So we're putting the framework around that to make that initiative successful with the council passing that last week. And I just wanted to comment that with the changes that were currently under consideration, that was equal to $34,075.
All right.
34.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Sure.
Alderman May.
Just on that last item with the 4th of July, I don't want you to think this is Mike May's idea of coming in, let's go cut the 4th of July parade. That's not at all what I'm suggesting. I think the sponsorship policy and the idea that the mayor's office has to go after these and the confidence from the city administrator and such, that's why it's in here. This isn't Mike May wants to cut the 4th of July. I don't think the mayor wants to, nobody wants to cut it. It's just a general confidence that now that we can attach a name to the sponsorship, that there might be more willing because they get the name recognition out of it where they didn't before. That's my understanding.
Hi, Mr. Chair, I already got blamed for canceling Christmas last year because the parade.
That was the
It's
weather.
camera action too.
So what were my words?
It was an act of God, not an act of the mayor. It's the weather.
Aren't they
Mayor doesn't have to up.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Again, any further discussion? All in favor? Oh, please, yes.
The Alderman insurance, what does that consist of? I'm sorry, I
Which one did we keep?
haven't heard about that.
Yeah, Alderman Mays can answer that for you. It was his proposal. And
So what we did last week at council was, what we had done during the employee benefit committee action and everything is we had changed it so older people in the next election would pay half their premiums in order to be on insurance. The policy change last week was that anyone who hasn't served 3 consecutive terms prior to 2020, anyone who hasn't done that would have to pay the full premium. So yourself, Alderman Vitale, others, Alderman Rote, would still have that 0.5, but anybody new would have to pay the full premium. So that's where the 17,100 comes from. Because we have at least 2 older people who are leaving and it will, that's just 2. Yeah. Yeah.
any further discussion? On the amendments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the chair votes aye. I forgot to. So
And then,
we're,
Mr. Chair?
yes.
One more?
Sure, go ahead.
Moving the judge position to the 0.9 FTE. With an
Okay.
understanding, I'll be coming forward with a policy change next week to help flush out what that 1.0 FTE was supposed to accommodate, so.
And is there a second on that?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on that amendment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right. And then we need to vote on this. I don't, the funding options breakdown here.
So, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Credit card option.
Rebecca?
Yes.
So based on the changes, we don't have the 50,000 of amendments. We've got, how much did you say?
3475.
075?
Yep.
Okay, so that means we still have to cover an additional 21,000 now, approximately?
Well, not necessarily. So this would be recommended to go into emergency operational repairs. So we have no idea what that could be.
Okay.
So.
So basically what we're saying is.
You're allocating this.
Yeah, the emergency operational repairs would be 34,000 as opposed to
Yeah.
50. Okay,
And
thank
if
you.
it's in excess of that, we would have to come to the council and move something around or look for something else. So there's nothing else that you don't need to get to the 50 necessarily, so.
I move approval of this amendment to the budget.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right.
Mr. Chair, do we need an approval of the budget as amended?
So.
Or do you want to wait till next week?
Probably next week would be better.
Yeah.
We'll
Yes,
get that.
definitely next week. I say that just because I'm agreeing with the folks in charge here. All right. So, and then we want to move on to the 2024 capital improvement program.
Not sure if there's any questions on that at all. Everyone received a copy of that. on
Did we
the fifth?
discuss this last time?
Yeah.
We did, yeah, it's just
Any
on
no
our
changes
agenda.
to it?
Okay.
Pretty much that first category that we just talked about was
Credit card category?
capital.
Basically approves this.
Yeah, so you could hold it and move it at the same time as you would consider the budget. That might be the best approach in case
Okay.
something
Comes up.
comes up
Perfect.
in the next week.
Sounds like a good plan to me. Okay.
Like a car gets canceled.
So yeah. There's no objection to holding item 2 then?
Yeah.
All right. Then anything else properly come before the committee? Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.